Hey there, I'm G, and welcome to the next level, and it's time for our console consultation. Now folks, on the last Arcade1UP console consultation review I did on the Atari 12-in-1 cabinet, I was pretty impressed, but I wasn't anywhere near as excited for that one as I am to review this. This is the Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder 5-in-1 Arcade1UP cabinet. It was exclusively available through Arcade1UP.com, but now it's also available through GameStop and a few other online vendors. And folks, I can't wait to dig in and to talk about this. So, you know how we do. We're going to take a look at the construction of it, just how well it's built, how good is the emulation. We'll take a look at the menus, because they did a few things different with this one. And then we're going to round it off with the games. So, are you ready? Yeah. Then let's do it to it. Just like the Atari 12-in-1 Arcade1UP I bought a few years ago, assembling the Arcade1UP was a breeze. Though this one took a little bit longer to build, I'd say maybe about an hour and a half total, though again I'd recommend a second person helping you if you can. All you need is a Phillips head screwdriver, and if you get stumped, there are how-to videos on Arcade1UP's website. There are a few more fragile parts in this model too other than the LCD, such as the light-up marquee, so just make sure that you handle those parts with care and plug them into the proper inputs. The optional riser took about 10 minutes to build, and I always use the risers on these 1-ups. Well, now that you've seen it put together, I just want to take a quick moment to just gush about how gorgeous this arcade cabinet. I mean, beyond my own personal, love of Sega, I have to say that maybe with the possible exception of the Star Wars cabinet, I have to say this one is possibly the most attractive one that Arcade1UP has done yet. Now, I haven't seen an original Revenge of Death Adder cabinet in person in decades, not since that one night at Dave & Buster's in Florida, but oh my goodness, does this cabinet look amazing. The side details are just wonderful with the original art from the arcade game on each side. It is still particle board like all the 1-up cabinets, but I can tell how much they stepped up their build and sticker quality here. I love how they got the display hint and how to place stickers as part of the LCD display, and how the art on the control panel is spot on as well. One extra thing to note, remember my Atari 12-in-1 1-up video when I mentioned that the control deck art can wear out over time and they sent me a free deck protector? Well, the Golden Axe cabinet came with a deck protector in the box. I would like to say that I wish the edges were a bit more curved. If you lean on the edge of the deck protector in a certain way, I could see it hurting your hands after a while. Like all of the 1-up library, the lower front of the cabinet has the logos of the games included, and they look great, even if they forgot to edit out the white spaces in the Wrestle War logo. Whoops! And the riser design is really sweet too. I love the contrasting orange and black colors with the side art and Death Adder's head front and center on it. It's awesome. But the big difference between this cabinet and the previous one I got is the light-up display. That is so cool. I know it's a minor addition, but it really does add more oomph to it, feeling like the original cabinet. Just look at it go. It's beautiful. Without the riser, the unit stands at about 46 inches tall, 32 inches wide, and 25 inches deep, and the riser adds about another foot to it. The reason why this cabinet is a bit wider and deeper than the other standard 1-up cabinets is that it is a 4-player cabinet, which is awesome. So be prepared to get cozy with your friends if you want 3 other people to join your journey, when current health climates get better, that is. As of now, the only other 4-player Arcade1UP cabinets out there are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and NBA Jam cabinets, which, someday I'll have those, but keep those dimensions in mind if you are planning to add it to your wall of Arcade1UP machines. So going back to the control deck, you have your power toggle switch and volume switches, 4 joysticks, and each player has 3 buttons with the default Golden Axe command labeling them for attack, jump, and magic. Of course, the button layout for the other games will display when you select the game. But how do those joysticks feel? Well, I'm pleased to say that they feel pretty great. I tried playing them each joystick and I didn't feel any hesitation on any of the sticks. The clicking felt just right. And the buttons feel pretty good too. They have a solid amount for pushing and for mashing, which you're definitely going to need if you play Wrestle War, which I'll get to that in the gameplay section. Although I must say I do prefer the more clicky push feel that the buttons on the Atari 12-in-1 cabinet had. This is probably a good time to talk about the cabinet's menu and settings. The menu style seems to be very similar to other Arcade1UP cabinets, with the art and flair of Golden Axe of course. But one thing to note is that each game has its own individual options menu to allow you to adjust the difficulty, amount of lives per credit, health bar, etc. One other thing to note is that 1UP added an artificial scanline option here, and it is the default setting. Now, I'm not sure if that's an option in other arcade cabinets, remember, I only have 2 of them. But as for someone who is not a fan of artificial scanlines and emulation, I turned them off for the sake of this review. And every game shows you the controls when you select the game. Now keep in mind that while you start the game from the menu with the Player 1 start button, for every game aside from the Revenge of Death Adder, Player 1 uses the Player 2 buttons and joystick, while Player 2 in the game uses the Player 3 buttons and joystick. You feel me? I know it's confusing, but this is a good move because it would be kind of awkward for the two-player games to have you both be the actual player 1 and player 2 on the cabinet. You'd be looking at the screen from the far left angle. Though it would have been good to have the option to choose which joystick you wanted to use for single player or two player. Not a deal breaker, but it would have been nice. But thankfully for the Revenge of Death Adder, you can start a single player game from any joystick set. So yeah, good job 1UP. You actually went above and beyond about the build quality on this one, well more than any of the others I've seen so far. But before we move on to the games, I want to take a quick moment to just explain why this particular Arcade 1UP is so important. When the Golden Axe 1UP was announced at CES last year, I was floored because this would be the first time that Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder was coming home in any capacity. Back in Golden Axe's, well, golden age, before a lackluster 1v1 fighting game, a lame adventure game that wasted Tyra's flair, you know, at least we got a cool magazine cover out of it, and a cancelled reboot that was resurrected as an anniversary piece. Yeah, that's funny, Sega. Revenge of Death Adder never left the arcades until now, 28 years after it was originally released. Now the game is also going to be on the Astro City mini console coming out this year as well, review on that soon. But it's just amazing that we'll finally have a legitimate way to play what I feel is the strongest game in the entire Golden Axe franchise. Not only that, this will be the first Sega cabinet made by Arcade1UP, which opens the possibility for even more 1UP cabinets from Sega. Hell, they just released an Outrun cabinet at the time of this review, and oh, I cannot wait to get my hands on that one. One other quick note is that this is also the first time that the arcade version of Wrestle War comes home as well. So that being said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive right into the Arcade1UP cabinet and see just how well they brought these Sega classic games into our homes, especially Revenge of Death Adder, for the very first time. Stay tuned! Alright folks, the wait is over. Let's dig right into the Revenge of Death Adder cabinet and play every single game on here and see if it lives up to the hype. Let's do it. Let's start off with the OG, the original arcade version of Golden Axe. Now I didn't have nearly as much hands-on time with the arcade Golden Axe as I did the Genesis version of the game, but even with its quirks, such as the somehow slow pacing and questionable hit detection, it's still pretty fun. However, seeing as how the Revenge of Death Adder is on here, which is significantly better in every way, I can really only see someone firing this up a few times just to pay homage or maybe just for a quick nostalgia trip. I mean, how can you not smile whenever you activate Tyra's Flair's fully powered Dragonfire magic attack? It looks just as awesome now as it did back then. And I forgot how Death Adder gets violently stabbed in the arcade when you defeat him. I remember how that threw me and my dad for a loop back then. My dad was like, oh yeah, he did. So how about the emulation? I'm delighted to say that it looks and sounds excellent. I didn't notice any kind of inaccuracies or lag during my playthrough, and that goes across all the games on this cabinet aside from one very minor quirk I found in the Revenge of Death Adder, which I'll get to later. Though I'm not as familiar with Revenge of Death Adder and the arcade Wrestle War, so if there are any sort of emulation quirks, let me know, but so far I'm very impressed here. As it is, Golden Axe is an important game to the history of not only Sega, but of beat-em-up games in general. Though it's outshined by its sequel, it's still a fun one to fire up every now and then. Yeah, fire. Yeah. Next is Shinobi. Now I'm going to be very real with you all. I am trash at the original arcade Shinobi. I have always struggled with it, and I still do today. And this is hilarious because I can wail at my favorite game in the franchise, Shadow Dancer on the Genesis. I can even 1cc that game on a good day if I'm lucky, but the original Shinobi has always kicked my butt. But I guess that's fair because I didn't play the arcade game nearly as much. It's a run-and-gun ninja style game where you have to rescue all of the hostages and make your way to the exit before the time runs out. Unlike the home Shinobi game, but like Shadow Dancer on the Genesis, you die in one hit, so unless your skills are at their peak, be prepared to die a lot. Thank goodness for unlimited continues, am I right? I would say that it would have been nice if 1UP had included the arcade Shadow Dancer on this cabinet, but actually, nah, we're better off. While I suck at Shinobi, the game never feels cheap, and I never get frustrated to the point of wanting to quit playing, and the bonus stages are so much fun. I wish there was a full game on its own. Like Golden Axe, Shinobi looks and plays great on the 1UP, and in my opinion, has aged tremendously better. This is probably going to be the first game I'm going to go back and credit challenge myself to finish after this video is done. You know, if I don't get caught up playing Revenge of Death Adder again. Now we have Wrestle War! As I mentioned earlier, this is the first time that the arcade version of Wrestle War has come home in any capacity, and only the second time the game has been available in American homes in total. Let's not talk about that dismal Sega Smash Pack on the Dreamcast again. I don't recall ever seeing a WrestleWar arcade machine growing up, though I knew the game existed from reading about it in magazines, though it quickly left my scope after discovering WWF Superstars and WrestleFest. Hey, Arcade1UP, how about a WWF Superstars WrestleFest 1-up combo? Okay, thanks, bye. Now, I've talked in depth about the home version of WrestleWar in a previous Level 10 video, which you can check out by clicking the link up here, but now that I've played the arcade game, it really makes the Mega Drive version look excellent. I didn't realize how great of a port it is. As for the arcade game, well, it's a fun old-school wrestling game that looks and plays great, but damn is it hard. Even on the normal difficulty settings, I couldn't get past Mr. J. It feels like once you're down enough, it is so hard to kick out of pinfalls unless you destroy your fingers and buttons mashing away at it. The game feels super responsive, and you still get that big hit feel when you nail someone with a clothesline or a pile driver. However, my fingers are already hurting at only a third of the way through the game. As much as I like WrestleWar, I've got other games to play on here, so I think I better preserve my fingers and move on, shall we? Yep, it's Altered Beast time.
Rise from your grave.
The classic that gets all the respect in the world from me, there's really not much to say about what Altered Beast is that hasn't been said already. It's a side-scrolling brawler where you collect power-ups from killing blue Cerberus monsters and then transform into a beast. Man, Sega was making beast transformations back before games like Bloody Roar make beast transformations cool. It's cheesy as hell, but it's delightfully cheesy. But you know what's not delightful about Altered Beast? How cheap the game is. Remember how I said how Shinobi was hard but never felt cheap? Well, I can't say the same about Altered Beast. There are so many frustrating cheap deaths in the game, and I don't recall the Genesis game being anywhere near this cheap. Again, I respect Altered Beast, and I wish I could say that I pine to go back to playing it as much as other Sega classics, but honestly guys, I just can't. But I know the game has fans and that are more die-hard about it than I am, so it's great that it's on here. Plus, the 2-player Altered Beast is always good for a laugh or two. But yeah, I know, you're really here to hear about Revenge of Death Adder, right? Well, I'm gonna give it a good, thorough rundown right after this. Alright, it's the moment we've all been waiting for, the main event and the marquee game of this Arcade1UP cabinet, Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder. So it took 28 years for us to legitimately have this game in our homes. Time to see if it's worth it. So the story is Death Adder somehow survived after his axe-stabbing defeat at the hands of, Axe Battler. Seriously, why didn't they give him a better name? Gets his hands on the Golden Axe yet again, and decides to build a giant castle to survey the kingdom that he's conquered. It's up to 4 brave warriors to band together and storm the castle, save the kingdom, and put Death Adder down once and for all. Out of these warriors though, only one of the original Golden Axe cast members returned for the sequel, the dwarf, Julius Thunderhead, and now he's riding on top of a massive ogre named Goa to do his bidding. Oh, kind of like how Donna did for the Mega Drive. Huh, that's cool. Replacing Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare are Sternblade the Barbarian, or just Blade, again with the generics, and Nora the Centaur. Sternblade is basically Axe Battler. If you're familiar with how Axe Battler played in the original, you'll be right at home with Blade here. Dora, on the other hand, oh, she is awesome and became my favorite character to play, but we'll get to that in just a bit. And the final member being a small boy named Little Trix, who is super fast and uses a pitchfork for a weapon. I guess he's supposed to be this game's answer to Skate from Streets of Rage 2? Maybe? He's kind of lame, really. But right from the beginning of the game, you are punched in the face with grandiose. Everything about the game is stunning. The graphics and animation are beautiful, the sprites are huge, and all the small details you notice in the background of how enemies respond to your attacks is incredibly impressive. And the music, talk about an upgrade, it is freaking awesome. I especially love the boss theme. So what did Sega add to The Revenge of Death Adder? Well, first off, it's 4-player capable, meaning it's a party on the levels of a Konami arcade beat-em-up now. The game now has branching paths as well, so you have multiple options on which path you want to take on your way to Death Adder's castle. And the game uses pseudo 3D vertical scrolling sections during the levels too, which really showcases that Sega System 32 graphical goodness. But probably the biggest upgrades in the game are in the pacing, the beast riding, and how the magic works. First, the pacing is so much faster than the original game. The enemies are a lot smarter and are quick to take you down instead of waiting for you to appear in their line of sight. Your attacks in the game feel like they have so much more impact. We're talking Streets of Rage 2 levels of satisfaction when you beat the crap out of your enemies, especially when you play as Dora, which brings me to why I love playing as her so much in the game. Her attacks are awesome. She uses a staff and her centaur legs to beat down enemies, and it's so cool, especially when your enemies are stunned and she just wallops them with your legs. It's like, get down there. freaking great. She's a blast. I highly recommend using her. Although it's weird when you ride a beast and her centaur legs magically disappear. That's weird. So about riding beasts. Yeah, you can ride beasts in the original Golden Axe, but in this game, it's so much more. They have multiple attacks and even have stronger attacks when your enemies are stunned. Although, like the dragon in the first game, some of the beasts are a bit OP, particularly the mantis. But that doesn't make it any less badass though. Finally, the magic attack system has been revamped to where you no longer earn your way up to having the strongest magic and then lose it all when you die. You now have one super strong magic attack and a certain amount of magic vials are needed to use it, which is different for each character. Blade has a screen engulfing flame attack which looks even cooler when you see a close-up shot of your enemies burn to death as it takes place. Dora has a lightning attack which may not be as stylish, but it is super effective. I think Julius and Gora have the coolest magic attack though, a smoking skull attack? What, like Steve Austin? Maybe not, but a giant skull appears and the smoke turns the smaller enemies to stone. So yeah, like Stone Cold? I knew I was onto something there. And then we have Trix, whose epic magical ability is...
What?
growing fruit out of a tree.
Oh, what? Oh, his magic is lame.
I could go on for hours about how good this game is. Seriously, it is one of the greatest beat-em-ups of all time, and it just boggles my mind why it took Sega 28 years to bring this game home. But it's here in some capacity, and the upcoming Astro City Mini. But I couldn't be happier about it either. There is one potential flaw in the emulation, and I'm hoping it's just me, so hear me out on this. It seems like the screen is overscanned just a bit. It's almost as if it's a little too zoomed in. It's not enough to be a problem, but I can't help but think it could be a victim of screen crunch. Was the screen size for the original Revenge of Death Adder cabinet a larger size and 1UP didn't compensate for it? If anyone is familiar with the original arcade cabinet sees this too, let me know in the comments if I'm tripping or not. Bottom line, the Revenge of Death Adder is outstanding. I am so thrilled to have this game finally, and someday I hope I can get 4 players going on this beautiful machine. But now, let's move on to the final thoughts, before I wind up playing through this game for a 4th time tonight. So yeah, that's the Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder arcade cabinet for you, and what else more can I say, folks? Arcade1UP knocked it out of the park with this one, and I already had kind of high expectations for it when they announced it, but aside from the few minor nitpicks that I actually had during the game reviews, the games played excellent. They sounded excellent. The cabinet is absolutely gorgeous, and being able to have 4 players simultaneously, but most of all, for us to finally get one of the greatest beat-em-ups of all time that Sega inexplicably, for some reason, never brought home, is here, and it could possibly be in your home. Well, aside from the Astro City Mini, which is coming out later, but just on the sheer fact that you did it, 1UP, this is awesome. It's wonderful. And I can easily say, without a doubt, that this Arcade1UP cabinet is G approved. So I gotta know, I know there's a lot of Arcade1UP fans out there. Have you gotten the chance to get this Golden Axe Arcade1UP cabinet? Or are you thinking about it? What are some of your fond memories of the Revenge of Death Adder that you might have had as a kid? Talk to me in the comments. Let me know, because I really want to know if anybody else has gotten a chance to get hands-on with this guy yet. And of course, thank you for watching, keep on gaming, and keep being awesome. I'm G, stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the next level.